Okay, so we're going to look briefly at brushwork in Affinity Photo. So, to begin with, I can select the paintbrush tool from across here, and when you drag your mouse or brush cursor across the image, you get a real-time preview of what you're about to do with that brush. And one of the basic parameters with brushwork is the width of the brush, which you can set up here on the context toolbar, like so. But you can also change it dynamically on the fly using the shortcut keys, left and right brackets, like so. So let's look at a contextual example of using brushwork to enhance a photograph. So what I'll do with this image is really bring out the reds and blues in this underground sign, as they are severely lacking in richness and impact. So to do this, I've got some options on the context toolbar that will help me. What I'll do first is set the blend mode to overlay. And this achieves a particular tonal mix between the brushwork and the layer I'm painting it onto. I can also change the opacity, which is effectively the overall strength of the brushwork. Then on top of that, for a much softer application, I can turn the hardness down to 0%. So you'll see the edges of the brush are much softer. When you do reduce hardness, however, your brush width ends up being a bit smaller, so you may need to compensate by increasing the width. Then finally, I want to set the correct color. So across on the colors panel here, I'll drag red right up to the maximum. And that gives me a nice solid red that I can use to paint into this area and this area of the sign. Now, a handy little trick for limiting your brushwork to particular areas is to paint into active selections. Now, what I mean by this is, for example, if I go ahead and use the flood select tool and uncheck contiguous, then I just click, and you can click right to increase the tolerance of the flood select until I've selected both of the circular areas here. Then I can switch back to the paintbrush tool, and any work I do with the paintbrush will then be restricted to the selection, as you can see here. So I'm just left clicking and dragging across to paint in these areas. Now then, we can do the same with the blue area of the sign. So I'll go to select and deselect to get rid of the active selection. Then again, I'll use the flood select tool, make sure contiguous is unchecked, and let's just click, drag to the right on a sample area of blue here until we select all of the blue areas of the sign. Then I switch back to the paintbrush tool, and this time I'll take the red slider all the way to 0 and increase the blue slider all the way. Then I can simply left click and paint over that area of the sign. So there we go. Once again, I can go to select and deselect to get rid of that selection and see the resulting image. So again, just to compare and contrast, let's move across to the history panel, and I'll scrub the history position all the way back to where we first started. So we can see, just by doing a bit of creative paintbrush work, we've really transformed this photograph of the underground sign. Moving on then, let's look at a different image. So this time, I'm going to pick up the paintbrush tool again, and we're going to look at using different types of brushes, or brush presets as they're known. So across on the brushes panel here, we can click this drop down and get a number of different categories, and they contain quite a variety of different brush presets for you to use. So I'll go and look in the texture category, and I'll pick Grunge 1. And if we drag across our image, we'll see it's quite a textural looking brush stroke. And what I want to do is give this image some very subtle brush texture all the way across the sky and some of the foreground. But also, we'll do this non-destructively. So you'll notice in the first image, I just painted onto the background pixel layer. So that is destructive behavior. This time, however, we'll create a new pixel layer. So we add a new pixel layer, and that then means that rather than set particular settings like the blend mode and opacity on the context toolbar, we can set them on the pixel layer instead. So I'm going to go ahead and set the blend mode back to normal, and instead I'll set the blend mode to overlay on the pixel layer. Then notice our opacity is at 100% already, which is fine, but that then means we can tweak it on the actual layer itself, so I'll go for about 20%. Then, using the shortcut key, I'll just increase the brush width, and as we brush across, we can see the result is much more subtle. Now then, while we're here, we'll also explore some additional brush options. On the context toolbar, we can click More to bring up the brush dialog. And here we can set accumulation, hardness, spacing, and you'll get a real-time preview of how that will affect your brush strokes in the preview up here. So we could, for example, increase the spacing. Now also under Dynamics, if you're using a tablet or another drawing device, you can have a number of controllers from the drop-down here that will control all of these dynamic settings. So if you're just using a basic mouse, like I am for this video, Random will allow you to achieve a random effect for all of these. You just need to choose Random on the drop-down. But for now, we'll increase the X and Y scatter slightly. And as you see here, these are already set to random, so they'll take effect with the work I'm about to do here. So then I can just click drag across to create some textural suggestion to this image. So this time, because we've done this work on a new pixel layer, we can tweak certain parameters after the fact, like the opacity, so we could strengthen that textural effect or reduce it further. We could also experiment with different blend modes. And so taking a non-destructive approach to brushwork will give us more options retrospectively. So there we go, just a quick video on using brushwork. I hope that was helpful, and if you have any questions or queries, please don't hesitate to ask on the Affinity forums. And don't forget to check out the other video tutorials. Thank you for watching.